1, 2, 3, go.
The quiet heart of Barnwood builders. Steady, humble, and endlessly genuine. 4 years, Johnny Jett has drawn viewers in with his craftsmanship and charm, turning forgotten wood into works of art. But behind that warm smile lies a story shaped by struggle, sacrifice, and survival. From his roots in rural Kentucky to his time serving in Vietnam, Johnny's life has been anything but easy. And just when it seemed he'd finally found peace doing what he loved most, a shocking rumor about his death sent fans into a frenzy. So, who is the man behind the legend? And what really happened to Johnny Jett? Johnny and his older brother, William Eugene Billy Jett, were raised in a close-knit Methodist household where faith and family came first. Childhood in rural Kentucky was simple but full of adventure. Johnny loved to explore, and has remembered one story from when he was in 4th grade, how he and his friends would sneak off during recess to the nearby creek to fish or swim. It didn't take long for the principal to catch on, and those innocent adventures earned them a few lectures along the way. He attended schools in Goddard and Flemingsburg, staying close to home. His older brother, Billy, was the first to enlist in the U.S. Army and was sent to Vietnam. After seeing the devastation of war firsthand, Billy urged their father to keep Johnny out of the military and push him toward college instead. Following that advice, Johnny enrolled at Morehead State University after high school. But it didn't go well. He admitted later that he had no idea what the professors were talking about and ended up failing nearly all his classes except for one, arts and literature. That lone success told him something about himself. He had a creative streak. With that realization, he shifted gears and enrolled at Maysville Community College to take vocational classes in drafting. Once he completed the program, he landed his first job at the Cincinnati Milling Company in Ohio. For a year, he immersed himself in technical drawings and board sketching, honing his skills as a draftsman. But in 1969, his plans changed dramatically when he was drafted into the Army. Johnny completed his 6-week basic training at Fort Dix, New Jersey. But instead of being sent straight into combat, he was assigned to an engineering unit. There he found himself back at the drafting board using the same skills he had learned in school. 2 years later, in 1971, he was finally sent to Vietnam. He never had to fire a weapon, but he often came under fire while moving from one location to another. Those experiences left their mark. During his time overseas, Johnny fell into a dark period. Recreational drugs like marijuana and heroin were everywhere in Vietnam. Easy to find and hard to resist. For many soldiers, including Johnny, they became a way to cope with boredom and the crushing weight of fear and depression. When he returned home, his father offered him a job at the family's water company. Having grown up helping his dad, it was familiar work and a chance to rebuild his life. Back home in Kentucky, away from the easy access to drugs, Johnny started to recover. He often said that his faith helped him through that period, believing that while God didn't make him an addict, he could use that struggle to bring out something good. In time, Johnny began sharing his story publicly, speaking at rehabilitation programs and helping others fight their own battles with addiction. Meanwhile, Billy had already started a career in carpentry, working on projects that involved dismantling and restoring old log cabins. Watching his brother inspired Johnny to try building one for himself. He eventually found an old cabin he wanted to make his own, but it was still occupied by a brother and sister who were leasing it. Fate stepped in when the sister passed away, and the brother moved to a nursing home. The property owner reached out to Johnny with an offer. He could have the cabin if he was willing to tear it down and rebuild it elsewhere. Johnny and Billy took on the challenge together. They carefully dismantled the old cabin, moving each log by hand back to their family farm. Then, side by side, they rebuilt it from the ground up. The two brothers shared a love for old cabins and rustic barns. It wasn't just a pastime. It was something that bound them deeply. But tragedy struck in 1995 when Billy passed away before he could finish his final project, a cabin he'd been crafting with patience, care, and pride. Determined to honor his brother's memory, Johnny decided to finish what Billy started. To help him, he brought in his best friend, Sherman Thompson, a skilled carpenter just like Billy. Together they completed the cabin, and in the process something bigger began to take shape. Johnny enjoyed the work so much that he told his father he was quitting his job to start a cabin business. The timing couldn't have been better. There was a growing demand for old log structures, and Johnny saw an opportunity to turn their shared passion into something real. From that point on, Johnny and Sherman hit the road, scouting rural Kentucky for historic 100-year-old cabins. They'd buy them one by one, carefully dismantling each structure and stacking the old logs neatly in what they called their boneyard. What started as a tribute to Billy slowly evolved into a thriving business. Before long, the two friends became known as reliable suppliers of aged, authentic wood. And they didn't just sell materials. They offered full restoration services, rebuilding those cabins for people who wanted to own a piece of pioneer history. In 1996, fate stepped in. Johnny was relaxing on his back porch, paintbrush in hand, when a man named Mark Bowe showed up. Mark was from West Virginia visiting his girlfriend at Morehead State University, and he was on the hunt for old cabins. Locals had told him about Johnny, saying he was the guy to see if he wanted pioneer-era logs. Their first meeting has since become part of local legend. Mark introduced himself, saying he was thinking about getting into the log cabin business. Without missing a beat, Johnny replied that he was thinking about getting out of it. Despite the exchange, the two hit it off right away. Johnny and Sherman knew the lay of the land and helped Mark track down an incredible number of cabins, around 100 by the end of that summer. After moving some of those structures to his own boneyard in West Virginia, Mark was so impressed that Sherman asked if he'd consider hiring them full-time. Mark agreed, and in 1998, Johnny and Sherman officially joined his new company, Antique Cabins and Barns. Johnny's experience operating machinery, dismantling cabins, and rebuilding them from scratch made him one of the founding figures of the team. His craftsmanship and dedication helped the company gain traction across the region, setting the stage for something even bigger that would come years later. That turning point came thanks to a man named Rick Kaplan, an executive from Silent Crow Productions in New York. While on a ski trip with his wife, Rick happened to pass through the area and noticed the striking old cabins stacked in the boneyard. Curious, he stopped to chat with Johnny and Sherman and soon after met with Mark. Rick pitched an idea that would change everything, a documentary about their unique operation. In 2005, they filmed a 20-minute documentary that was shown at several festivals. The response was promising enough to inspire a pilot episode, which they pitched to multiple television networks. But timing wasn't on their side. The TV world back then was dominated by shows like American Chopper, filled with dramatic confrontations and fiery on-screen tension. The quiet craftsmanship and teamwork behind these cabins didn't fit that mold, so the pilot never took off, at least not yet. A few years later, the crew got an offer to star in a reality show, but they turned it down almost instantly. The producers wanted drama, arguments, tension, and the kind of fake chaos that dominated reality TV back then. But Mark Bowe wasn't interested. His crew had spent years working side by side, building trust and friendship that ran deeper than business. As he put it, he wasn't about to start shouting at his friends just to make good television. Then came a turning point. The DIY network approached them with a completely different vision. They didn't want fake fights or forced storylines. They wanted authenticity. They wanted to capture the crew exactly as they were, doing the hard, honest work of saving old barns and cabins. Once filming began, the crew was followed by cameras as they worked on their projects, and Mark took an active role in shaping how their story was told. He met regularly with producers, helped plan each episode's structure, and eventually became one of the show's producers himself. He wanted every shot to reflect their craftsmanship and the pride they took in their work. When the show aired, the response was overwhelming. Viewers loved it. What started as a small project quickly turned into something much bigger. The production team was stunned by the ratings and immediately ordered 13 more episodes. That was the beginning of what would become Barnwood Builders. By 2013, Johnny had officially joined the cast, solidifying his place in what would become one of the most beloved crews on television.